Now, number 6, I can get into. Let's talk about some amazing bathroom design trends in 2024 that are coming up. Just you wait. I'm James from the Paint People, and normally I love to talk about paint colors, color theory, putting palettes together for you guys. But today I wanted to go a little bit off topic and talk about bathroom design, because as my subscribers probably know, as my Patreon members definitely know, I'm redoing my bathroom. It's a lot of fun, but I wanted to see what the hardcore design enthusiasts are doing, assuming they have an unlimited budget, because I've taken a peek at this article that I'm going to share with you, and some of these are probably a little outside of my price range, but hey ho, we can only dream, right? So this article is from Jenna Sue Design Co. Shoutouts to her. I really enjoy reading her articles and her blogs. They're pretty cool. I'll also leave it in the description down below if you're interested, but let's go for it. So the first one is Moody Marble. Classic. I mean, we love marble here, right? Now, marble is definitely not a new thing. It's probably one of the original aspects of design that's existed for thousands of years. But I think what we're talking about here is how marble is being utilized and also the type of marble that's being used. Instead of your more traditional, very plain white with gentle veining, we're seeing some extremely dramatic, graphical, high contrast marbling that I think is very, very interesting. What's great about it is how it's being used. So we're not necessarily seeing marble all over the bathroom typically. It could just be in a shower. It could be in a sink, like a really fun sink. Or you could go for the all-over look with this beautiful peachy marble that I think is really interesting. I think one of the main considerations that you need to make when it comes to marble is upkeep. So it's not a set it and forget it type of material. You got to make sure you keep it clean, sealed properly so nothing gets in all those nooks and crannies, because it's not a man-made material that is just completely impervious to moisture and water. It's a natural material. And that also means it's going to be way more expensive. So just keep that in mind. This is something that, you need to budget for. And one really great piece of advice that Jenna mentions is if you're a bit spooked about it being out of fashion in a couple years, just go for something more subtle veining, or use it in smaller doses. So not all over the bathroom, just on one component that you could easily switch in or switch out. The only marble I got is the laminate countertop that I inherited from the builder, which I will change eventually, but maybe not for the real stuff. I'll do something else. Now this is fun. So number 2 is checkerboard tile, which sounds kind of whatever. I mean, checkerboards existed forever, but take a look at these photos. So this first example here, it looks like we have checkerboard alternating between marble and then some other material where you have veining and then a more plain opaque kind of look, which I think is really interesting. I haven't really seen that too much before. And then of course, more muted patterns where it's just a very subtle off-white and then kind of pastel neutral checkerboard, kind of like what I like to do sometimes with my wall color and trim colors, bringing it back to paint for a second, where you have a subtle difference between your wall and trim. So it's not crisp white and then a dark dramatic wall color. You have an off-white and then an off-white. Just enough of a difference between the two where you can distinguish one from the other, but still a more subtle, understated look. And I think that's nice to consider with checkerboard because by definition, checkerboard is usually very high contrast. So go for a very low contrast. I think that's interesting. Also, exploring texture with checkerboard is interesting, whether it's tiles of varying levels of depth or even checkerboards that are made up of smaller tiles, like looks like little bricks. Very fun. Might feel a bit weird to step on though, personally. Stone floors. So I think this is a trend that is trying to replicate historic features. If you've been to a really cool old bed and breakfast that used to be a barracks or something, and they have big stone walls and cobblestone floors and things like that, it looks really cool. But I think what's cool about it is the history behind it. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of trying to replicate that in, let's say, a very modern home. It just feels a little bit out of place to me. But I think if you're going for that rustic feel and you kind of keep it a little consistent throughout your home, it could look really good. But you can also get, some of those more cheaper porcelain tiles that look kind of like stone from afar, but then when you get up close, it's kind of obvious that it's just tile. It is what it is, right? Not a huge fan of that. Statement sinks. I think this is not a 2024 thing. I feel like statement sinks have been around for a while. Maybe there's just way more options now for really cool, fun accent sinks. And that's great because if you get a really cool sink, I mean, that can kind of make or break an entire bathroom. Because really, when you think about it, you don't have a ton of space to work with typically, especially if you're designing a small powder room where it's like 2 square feet. So really, you get a cool light, you get a cool sink, maybe a fun little faucet, a little farmhouse canvas that says live, laugh, love in the loo. I don't know. There are a lot of options when it comes to sinks. You can really just explore things that have cool textures using nice materials. Even color alone can do the job. If you have a vanity and you just painted a fun accent color, that can oftentimes be enough. That's what I did as soon as I moved into this house. I had your typical builders, like really dark mahogany wood, and then I went with like a turquoisey robin's egg blue that looked really good. You could maybe do it with paint alone, but more so for the vanity, obviously don't paint the sink. Rich reds. Now, I remember a time where I had a red powder room, so I guess it's making a comeback. Red is an interesting one because it's such a vibrant, punch-in-the-face color, super passionate. Bathrooms and powder rooms especially, they are places where you can take risks design-wise. It's a smaller space and it's enclosed, so it's not something that's constantly going to be in eyesight in your home. And if your guests stay long enough, they're going to eventually see it. So why not give them a little show? Am I right? I do enjoy red and the different ways you can approach red, whether you go with like a dark purple leaning wine kind of color or a more fiery terracotta that has more of an orange or even a brown mixed in. And we see a couple examples of those here on the wall paneling and then the vanity itself. It just doesn't scream 2024 to me. It's a little bit, I wouldn't say dated, but I'm not too sold on red, to be honest. Now, number 6, I can get into. We're talking wood tones. Now, to be fair, this is not an ingenious, amazing realization that, hey, wood looks pretty cool in bathrooms. This has been around for a little bit. I do like that it's a departure away from that super minimalist, all white everything type of look that we've seen before. Wood is just such a cheat code in design. Gives you color, texture, that organic feel, warmth, all of that. And it's just using a material we find in nature. Who would have thunk? Now, one thing that's interesting that Jenna does point out is darker wood. I always think of lighter woods, even those whitewashed type of looks when it comes to bathrooms, but darker woods can give you that historic feel, that antique-y vibe that I also do have an affinity towards. And what I love most about this last picture, where it looks like there's beautiful wood slats on that shower, it's actually tile. And it's this exact tile that I was so close to using for my shower. It just came down to budget because with shipping and all that, we were looking at $30 a square foot or something Canadian, so funny money. But still, compared to what I ended up with, which was $3, and it looks great, I'm sold. But I love that look. I absolutely love it. Why not go with wood when you can go with tile that looks like wood? It's great. Plaster and lime washed walls. So we're going back to faux finishes. One thing that I found really amusing is Jenna said, we're not talking about the 90s look of smooshing and ragging, which I've done a bit of back in my day. And my dad has actually done a lot more back in his day. The lime wash look, it's very ancient feeling, but what I like about it is it's more subtle. So it's more of a passive, barely there pattern and texture. You can actually feel it in some cases, which is really nice. What's great about it is you can really spice up an otherwise neutral pastel color by going with a faux finish. Just gives you something a little bit more to look at. And I do like the idea of it because texture is often a neglected part of design, especially when it comes to wall finishes. Number 8, framed shower enclosures. Something feels wrong about this to me. It just looks like you're getting in and you're not getting out. Like it looks like a cage. But as we go down, we see some more contemporary feeling ones that are just a little more clean. I guess it could be a good opportunity to add other elements rather than just your frameless glass panels that we all use that I'm getting installed tomorrow, actually, in my bathroom. But what I do enjoy about this is even though some of them are kind of over the top for me, it's another opportunity to add design elements. And you don't necessarily want to think that you have to just add because it can be overwhelming sometimes. But like this last example here, it's an otherwise pretty clean and straightforward bathroom with some whites and grays. And then you have the pop of color in the faucet, in the shower head, and then that metal framing around the glass just to give it a nice little unique finishing touch, which I think is always nice. Arches and curves. I mean, yeah, when I was in Santorini, I saw a lot of these. But I'm not necessarily going to go and start plastering and drywalling all of my doorways. Maybe utilizing curves in other aspects like the fixtures themselves, perhaps the shape of the countertops and things like that, maybe the rugs. I do like curves when it comes to design because it just feels a little more comfortable, not as sharp, not as jagged, not as, you know, aggressive. It's more relaxed, and I think in a bathroom especially, you do want to feel relaxed. At least I do. Who doesn't want to feel relaxed in a bathroom? And then this last one, we have accent molding. When I read this first, I was expecting all this crazy molding, crown molding, and wood paneling all over, and I wasn't really too fond of that. But no, just to clarify, it is also not mold, like molding. It's these fun little details in the vanity and the molding that's actually on the units themselves. These sort of ribbed and scalloped profiles that I think look really cool. And it just gives you another bit of visual intrigue, another thing to look at, to have fun with. It's candy for the eyes to me. Just that little bit of difference can really make all of the difference. There you go. Quoted. Thank you, Jenna Sue Design, for this wonderful article. I will leave it in the description down below. And also, if you want to see more videos like this, I tend to talk about design a little bit more on our Patreon because we have a lot of pretty knowledgeable people there that watch the videos and comment and engage. Great place to learn, including me. I mean, I learn a lot from you guys as well. And we have exclusive content you can only find there, released every single Sunday. So link in the description down below if you want even more of me. Why wouldn't you? And we have another video on YouTube right over here.